So,
No,
Ian,
it's
thank
fine.
you.
Hey, yeah, no worries at all.
I was thinking I would love to see if you can introduce yourself for what you're doing, like where you are right now and, what you're doing for work and life and what you're trying to build, and then we'll dive back into little Ian afterwards and work our way
Yeah,
back
that's
up.
fine. Sure, absolutely. So, what I'm doing right now, I'm just having fun. I mean, with Tommy and I, we're building up the Fire Games, which is great, and that's a really cool community where we're helping businesses to be able to grow and for people to come in and actually reach their income that they're looking for on school, and doing it collectively and collaboratively, which is just through real relationship, and that's the most genuine way to be able to do it. So that's one facet of life. Another facet of life, though, for me is working with people to be able to improve their decision-making abilities. And I've been a coach for years and years, working with small business owners, and really have found this as being an essential gap to people just identifying real joy in what they're doing. And it falls into the fire games to some extent, but that's my personal passion and something that I just really have unlocked. And just being here in Manchester has just been a lot of fun to be able to experience some different things culturally and to be able to put these things together to, just help people out that haven't had all the diverse experiences.
That made me wonder, and this might be, I hope it's not a sidestep,
Yeah.
is are you doing any one-on-ones with people not related to the fire games?
Yeah. I've been, like I said, doing coaching ever since I came over here. So a little over 8 years, I've been just exclusively doing business coaching. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah,
And
it's
then there's
fantastic.
one-on-one coaching happening within school, but in a different little
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So I basically get to qualify and bring over everything that, I've touched over 300 businesses in experience and worked, one to one with people under their roof for that many different clients. And it's been really an interesting experience to be able to peel that many layers back on the onion and to get down to the common denominators that people face as being challenges. And
Mhm.
that's why I really have sank myself more into the decision and judgment side of things because ultimately you can have the best systems in the world and have the best, most effective well being and wholeness to yourself. But at the end of the day, if you're not using the right judgment or decision, it makes or breaks whether any of that's worth it.
I I'm feeling like asking about judgment since we're there right now. Is that an easy thing to address with somebody for you?
It's
Or is that
something,
something that takes a lot of time?
well, you have to really have trust with the person. Like, that's something where, again, you're opening up vulnerabilities, you have to have relationship, and that kinda goes into what everything that I touch is foundationally back into relationship, because without that, we're not going to have anything to where we can make a effective change. Otherwise, we're just being superficial with each other, and that's something that I wish people were safe enough to get real more often. It's a safety issue. Of course, we try and keep ourselves in a safe environment at all costs, and it takes a while for the walls to come down for people. But when you can get into that trusting relationship where you can speak frankly and openly about things, there's so much to learn about effective decision making and judgment. It's kind of a funny thing because and it's been incredibly difficult for me to be able to work backwards and find this gap because if you think about it, nowhere in your life, I bet you anyway, that nowhere in your life was there any effective coursework or training or anything of that nature to actually go and inform you how to make good judgment, good decisions in things. It's always a system and a process and something that, is a framework that you can apply or a credential or a degree or some type of certification. Or it's you working on your, you know, through therapy, well-being, yoga, health, something of that nature, but never has have I come across any type of coursework that actually goes into effective judgment and decision making. Yet that's everything that we do all day long. It's the unlock. It's the unlock
Yeah.
to everything. And that's what excites me because I've spent years and years trying to figure out what is the root cause. I've stepped into so many different situations from personal to relational to family to health to, business. And, as I said, I'm a business coach by, love and trade, but so often we misidentify what the actual root cause of a problem is. And so I don't like the term business coach because it comes so generically. But yet someone comes in and they go, I have a sales issue. And really that is something that came and manifested from home. And there's a limiting factor that's there where they're plateauing. And so all of these things actually from a root cause go down into this category that I've just really been excited about, being able to clarify and actually tell people how to systematically peel back and be able to get past that point and to make these better calls because we're just constantly making decisions and our biology is compressed so much more in this day and age that it goes way far, much farther than where we were even a couple of decades ago, let alone when we had community and a little bit of a slower life that went around with things. But our time, our energy, and our attention is just terribly compressed, and that's only going to happen more and more. We're only going to increase that compression, and that's where I think that learning this gives you so much more adaptability and resilience that really is a key competitive advantage to be able to have going forward into the future as well.
Thank you. You sparked my curiosity in general, but that point is perfectly we're going to take a dive back into the past because there is there's how did I phrase it? There's always pivotal experiences and moments in our life that play a part in us knowing ourselves. We all have that to a degree, right? Of understanding and knowing self. And that could be it is a lifelong discovery. But I would like to go back to where you grew up. I want to ask where you were born, where you grew up, and what
Sure,
some neat little cute stories about childhood that come to mind.
absolutely.
They could tell us
I grew
who
up
you are.
Yeah, no, I grew up in Ohio. Only child, had a really just wonderful family that was around me, but not connected really to extended family that much, just more so just mom and dad. So I did feel alone a lot, as a kid, but that gave me a lot of discovery. And I was really nurtured extremely well to tease out that creativity and that discovery. And so I had a really happy home, just lots of love, but I always wanted to get into the sciences. I really wanted to be a scientist for a long time. I always wanted to be in a think tank. I always wanted to be an inventor. Those were common themes of my childhood as I go and I draw and I design things and be constantly just in a space of creativity.
That made me think of Frankenstein. Were you a fan of that book?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's great. I love science fiction as well. I mean, I was a
Yeah.
huge fan when I was a kid, like into Jurassic Park and all that kind of stuff. I was obsessed also with like genetics. I thought I was the weird kid that like memorized the periodic, table of elements and like just for fun and would make my own flashcards and sit and like read books of how things worked and I really loved like mechanics and engineering, and I watched my dad take apart VCRs and camcorders, and this was my childhood. He'd bring things home from people that he worked with, and I'd see him tinker and repair things, and it's wonderful to have those types of skills where I can actually go and I enjoy doing those things as an adult as well as just it's very cathartic and that I can take something and repair a car myself and you know work on electronics at break or kind of just do these things that otherwise uh, other people wouldn't take a crack at it. So it's a lot of fun, and there was a lot of great lessons that came out of that as well.
Do you feel like there's something going through like high school and early college years that you feel might have set you on the course that you're on right now in
Yeah,
business?
yeah. I had a really interesting childhood in a lot of different facets. I when I was in school, I got placed into the gifted program as well when I was in the second grade. I got placed into that. And so I was doing all these different projects all throughout, and I got in high school, and when I was in high school, I kind of just got bored with it all. And I was taking summer school just to get some of the courses that I didn't want to take during the year out of the way. I mean, I was just a strange kid. I compacted things on top of myself. And so I remember I started my junior year in high school, and I went into school and I was in the first week, and I thought to myself, I probably don't have to be here for another year. I probably have enough credits and I've already taken the advanced courses and everything else. And so I went over to the school office and I sat down with someone, one of the counselors, and they looked at me when I said, "Hey, I want to graduate this year." And and they said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Pull up my transcript. I think I could graduate." And I hadn't talked with my parents about this at all. So I just went in there and they pulled it all up. They looked and I said, "Yeah, if you just double up on English this year, we could put you into the senior English and you'd have all of the credits that you need to be able to graduate." And I said, "Well, I don't want to be here for another year." I said, "Let's do that." So I changed one of my electives out for another English class, and I became a senior in my junior year. So just skipped the grade with that. And there was several different things that really happened at that point. There was a battle for recognition of the 4 years of academic work that happened. Since I skipped out on a year, there was National Honor Society, and they wouldn't allow me to be able to walk in the graduation if I wanted the year four award for being a scholar for 4 years of high school. And so my parents and we raised a whole thing with school district over this and everything, and there was a whole hurrah to go along with that. And I just really started seeing the inequities out of some things that were, and the power that was there also because a lot of the community came behind and such, which was really cool. There was two people that was affected. Another classmate also was affected with the same verdict from the superintendent in the school district, and it hit the newspapers and everything else. And so it was quite a powerful thing as an experience as a child to kind of see that type of reaction out of things. I didn't get the year four award, but it still was an interesting experience. And I started working when I was 14 and a half as well. I got my first job. I worked over at Lowe's. I was on tills with $30,000 worth of cash running through my hands, and it was right before they banned having under 16-year-olds working inside there, and I was friends with a district manager and stuff. And so that was neat to start working at that point in time. And I just did that in the summertime, but I also got employed by Radio Shack too, and I worked over there, and I became the youngest store manager in the country's or in the company's history. I had my own store when I was 17 years old, and I had $1 million store, which was pretty amazing. So that drove me into business, those types of things, and seeing some of the other ways to be able to have a voice, I guess, was very interesting.
Yeah, those opportunities too. When I look back, I'm like, I like to think like I can see the people that played a part in my promotion or my positioning and my gratitude for being seen, you know?
Yeah,
Because I'm like, oh yeah. And then I moved here and then I was able to move up here. But then when I look at the people who were doing, I was like, wait a minute, that was, of course, there's a certain amount of us, right? But that positioning of life and circumstances and the people around us. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I had a wonderful opportunity when I was 14 years old. I, well, I was a strange kid. Again, I was the kid that wanted for career day to go and, go job shadow being a VJ on MTV. Like, I was like, "No, I'm, like, gonna stay here locally and go with mom and dad. Like, I'm gonna go to New York City. I'm gonna become a VJ." And so, my teachers and such, they're like, I don't know what to do with this." I said, "Yeah." So I sent a job application to MTV. I got back a response in the mail that their legal department wouldn't allow me to be on set, but I was talking with, like, Kurt Loder and stuff like that, having phone calls and, like, "Can I just come up? Can I just be able to be on the channel for a day?" And, I was just always pushing things, and I also play piano since I was 4, and when I started really composing, I again, that was around 13 or so when I got into doing that. And I started writing letters to people because I wanted to have a professional keyboard, and my parents didn't have the means to be able to do that. And I wrote a local businessman that, well, have you heard of Longenberger baskets? Have you seen those at all? He deceased in company. It's no longer around, but they were a huge, huge company, and they wove baskets of all things. And it was a local business, but they were internationally known. And and I wrote him, and he sent me $3,000 to buy a keyboard. And it's those moments where you're like, if I reach out, if I make the connection, if I put together a demo tape, I sent songs that I had composed and, wrote and got letters of recommendation from my music teachers, both in school and both, through private lessons. And I put together this whole packet and sent this to a CEO of a company when I was 14, and, and got back a personal check for 3,000. And it's just amazing. I got to thank him right before he passed away, actually, and that was really just an amazing experience as well. But I got made fun of out of that stuff, and kids were like, "What are you doing? Like, what a waste of time." And then I was like, "Well, look, I got a a Yamaha EX5, and that's pretty cool." So yeah, it's those types of experiences, and I was encouraged to do that stuff at home, and that was really an amazing thing. But I've continued to kind of do that and just forge my own path throughout life and take that spirit along with it and constantly be trying to learn and apply and help others out of things, because I think that's the greatest gift that we can do, is to actually impact other people with something and bring that value. If I'm going to labor, it needs to be worth something, and it needs to bring me happiness and bring other people happiness too.
I love that your world was supporting this. It's almost like a little experiment of imagination and the what if and being, and, to me, I see that like he said yes, he sent you the money. It was verifying that ask, put yourself out there, these things that I just appreciate that so much. You say a little weirdo, but it's you were adorable, like you didn't have those often we can early on get these little blinders on or a narrowing of imagination. And I think that's part of our inner, like not inner child, but just how kids, that imagination we have as children, and to see beyond. And I feel that in what you're saying already is that you were wondering how things worked. You were looking past where you were, and giving yourself like, if I'm ready to leave high school, can I get out of here sooner? And that like self agency where like I remember feeling that, but I never, it was like I have to be at this pace. There was never that questioning. Um, which is really inspiring now to hear, like at any time that we're coming across it, we can hear someone else's story and be like, hey, you could do that for yourself, or you can practice that. So thank you for sharing that. I know that you have a little, like you had mentioned your hair being something that people would ask you about. And I right away was hoping you could paint a picture. You shared that privately, but I was hoping to know like when Like, what time in your life did you start to play with that? Because it became something where you're in, like, you're public facing, right? Or you have to talk to people, you're doing a job, and you have an aesthetic. And
Yeah.
what inspired that playful, there is such a play. Like, when you're, I feel like when we're changing facial hair or we decide to start wearing something, it can even be a necklace, it makes us feel grounded or empowered. And sometimes it's a jacket for somebody where they just like kind of step into a persona. And not that all hair is like that, but can you share with us what sparked a change, what it looked like literally, and yeah, how that played out for you?
Yeah, so I from the identity side of me, I just I didn't have a huge amount of self-agency for a while. Me as a kid and stuff like that, I was really blessed, like I said, with, parents that really kept my world supportive in such a cool way. But in the same token, I had a lot of things that were also where I didn't have to worry about it. And that was wonderful. But I didn't step into that agency until really adulthood in a lot of ways. So, my mom was like, hey, I picked this up at the store. Here's some clothes. Here's this, here's that, and stuff like that. So I stayed, as a kid, I was pretty normal. But when I got into adulthood, I really started going, you know what? It's radical identity. Like it's just your independent self. And again, I really realized early on how wonderful personal branding is. And it didn't have that name to it, but I think that the authenticity comes through out of someone. And when I hire someone or if I am looking at candidates and their potential, I want to see the real true self. I don't want to just see something on paper. Resumes, CVs, they're a lot of times just junk. And I want to see the person. I need to sit down. I need to know how their mannerisms are. I need to understand how, their background and how do they actually convey and hold themselves. That's something totally different that you can't relieve out of a sheet of paper. So, with that though, from the hair side, I just started enjoying just being someone that could have a conversation, could have a spark with someone, and the hair turned into the vehicle for that. It just continued to let it grow. I always like to use product and stuff in it, so I just use hairsprays and stuff. But I would blow dry it upside down and spray in stuff, and so it just would really just kind of spike out and just continue to kind of come out. And then, I didn't intend for it to, but it just kind of grew to a point where it started getting attention. And I would cut it, but it would still be quite long. I liked Wolverine and that look. And I actually remember going around to calling and auditioning salons, calling up people going, who is great at doing like character hairstyle? Like I don't want just someone that can cut hair. And I actually auditioned several salons when I was over in living in Maryland, and I found someone that had worked in film before and stuff. And I said, I'm looking for a Wolverine. And like, I got it. And I came in and I stuck with that person. But it was wonderful though, because I would go and instantly be able to connect with people who might have another agenda or have been having an emotional day or something of, these things were all thwarted by just being real and having something to talk about. And it was an instant icebreaker. It was one of the best things that I did actually in business.
I'm such a visual person, so I was trying to imagine what this looked like, but so I came up with something and I imagined, receiving you as in a business setting, and right away probably feeling disarmed, you know, and like open and curious, which would take me out of, um if I was like in a business front, or like, what are we doing? What's our business here?
Again,
To
it's
suddenly like,
relationship.
here's a person who's in my mind catching my curiosity, and the many questions that come into someone's mind. So it's just really cool, and I like that. Did you introduce color, or was this just a styling thing that was going on?
I did color briefly, but only in really
Yeah.
one surgical attempt. I did, I think I had and I went all out whenever I did it. I like had 5 colors or something that I had thrown into it at once, but then it just turned into being more about a style. And it was something that, again, like what you said, it was a genuine disarmament for true relationship to be established. Because a lot of the things that I was going in, I would be getting approvals for thousands of dollars worth of work. And, you're going in and seeing someone for just a few minutes, interrupting whatever their mindset has been and whatever pattern they're in. And, they're going to now spend money with you. And that disarmament was really powerful. And it even got me a job at one point. Someone actually interviewed me, and I became director of operations for a company based on the fact of my hair. And they said, anyone that has hair like that, like you're creative, you're going to take this company far. And we grew that company out of his living room into having, well, venture capital and private equity and acquisition ultimately out of it. So really, really cool stories
Yeah.
attached to hair, all
When did
things.
when did going back into was there a business shift, or just like when you were able to be like, I think I'm gonna just be a little bit more natural, tame? What that
It's
shift
it
was it like a new chapter in
It
life that
wasn't
you can
connected directly to a new chapter. It's just more so just what I'm feeling now for identity, for who I am. I just naturally evolve, and I like that. I like the fact that it's something that, again, the authenticity of it just comes through. It's a season. I wore the season. I'm kind of into something different at this point. I'm getting more grays that's happening and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you know what? I like kind of looking like the James Bond side of things or something like that. We could be the mature guy with the fun hair or something of that nature. So I don't know. We're just living in a different season.
I love it. Everything what you just said about your hair is how I mean, I feel like I could generalize. That is really how a lot of hairdressers and barbers feel about their own hair. So it's super cool for you to say there might be a there's a little hairstylist inside of you. But it's neat because that's the answer, when for that's the answer I give when someone asks me that, when I've had blonde hair or pink hair and whatever color, it's like I had said once, like somebody had said, in dating, like, well, I need to know if you're going to do a drastic change. And I'm like, whoa, sometimes these drastic, I, I don't know, like to be like, suddenly I'm aware of the spontaneity and how it is such an expression that I don't even think about. It's just this,
Yeah.
how am I feeling and what do I need? And I guess some people feel like that about exercising, right? Like you can create with your body, you can create this different feeling. I don't know if that's a weird analogy to compare muscles or physical activity to what we do with our hair, but to me, it feels very, very similar in that expression. I just love it. I don't even know if people who work out can see that they're doing that, but when they talk, I'm like, "You're doing that," you know?
Yeah. And
So
that
it's kind of vague, but
creativity. No,
mhm.
it's actually very specific because I think that it comes down to creativity. Again, you're the master of all domains, and you need to figure out whether these domains are worth your time, your attention, and your energy or not. And that's what we do such a terrible job of. And so if we actually bring it all back, we can create whatever we like. And we can create differences through our decisions and through our behaviors to be able to facilitate changes around us. We are a byproduct. People talk about vibration, color, energy, all that kind of stuff. It is true in a way. Like there's nothing that makes that stuff not be relevant. But people also are the masters of their own destiny and what they're doing on a moment by moment basis. And all of those things are irrefutably tied in. It's just something to where you decide how authentic you want to be and how you're going to bring joy and happiness to yourself, to others. And if you're willing to stay mediocre or if you're wanting to be able to take yourself to the best, and that best is going to look different and independently different to each other. And it just depends on how confident you are in your field to be able to come and authentically express what allows you to become your best. And I think that those are the hesitation points where people don't get to express these things differently. That may come out in exercise or your hairstyle or the way that just go and enjoy work and tie that in, or family life, or time for, activities and travel and all these things. These things are not one or the other things. They're indicative of how far you're willing to allow yourself to raise your ceiling, because all of that is a choice by choice basis where those compound, and you can take yourself from absolute destitution into being a one in a billion, example, like moonshot person. And all of us are exactly the same. Our circumstances aren't. I'll give you that. But we can definitely also be agent in changing those circumstances every single day.
Yeah. You inspired that in me. I wanted to embrace confidence. And then in you bringing it up, I want to be really comfortable with that word, confident and confidence. I want to be very close to it. And when you describe it, the pain point for me is feeling, not as close to that word as I want. I can definitely identify with some words as I've gotten older and know myself. I feel like there's my aura is literal courage. Like just like and people on the outside have perceived like, wow, that is such a confident person. And I'm like, really what's the fire is this courageousness because I could feel the fear and know that I face it daily for that outcome, right? So I feel like I've gotten courage down, but I really, really do want a better relationship with true confidence. And I appreciate you bringing that up. If you have 3 tips that somebody can begin for taking those steps towards confidence, and 3 tips that you can share working and collaborating. You've done a lot of collaborating and working with people, and we know that there is, I think, a correct way to do that. A correct way to have business relationships can go awry. I would love 3 tips, best practices for you that you've come up with on how to identify who you're going to work with and what those tips that you suggest in trying to do your due diligence with your business partners as you make them.
Sure. I think that the biggest unlock for people I think the biggest unlock for people to be able to step forward and to be able to alleviate plateaus in their life is for them to get clear on themselves. I think that the compression that we have societally on our attention specifically gives us a lot of fragmented pieces of glass that we mistakenly pick up and place as our identity, and it's not real. And I think that that's some difficult introspective work to do. And again, because of the compression of things with time, we don't necessarily set aside the time. And there's a fear component to that as well, because what I told you earlier, safety surrounds everything that's normalized. And if we have pressures someplace else in our life, then we may not want to take other things on, even if those things were identity based or being at the core of our well being. If it's out of sight and out of mind, and I'm already pressured and stressed somewhere else, I'm not necessarily going to voluntarily go and work on that. And, for good reason as well. And we just go at a rapid pace. We biologically are not supposed to be at the pace of I look at a device 1,000 times a day on average. This is not farming, back with great grandfather where we worked really hard, but we had the community there, and there was a lot more relational time that was there because everyone was interdependent. And now we're independent, and we don't have stories that get passed down in the same way to be able to mitigate lessons learned. And instead, I feel like everyone's on their individual path and has to learn those lessons a lot on their own. But in that, we don't have clear identity out of things. And I see a lot of people get hung up to where they spend 20 years doing something that is sounds good and is something that they can be even proud of to tell other people, but then they go, "Whoa, I got hit with the health scare," or "I realized that I'm totally unhappy and I never became a parent," or something happens to where they got to reflect back and they go, "Wow, I did not want to be that person." And it normally takes a shakeup where, again, the safety gets broken for someone to have the time or shift the attention to actually doing the heavy lifting of going, were these broken pieces that I picked up? Was the, $130,000 a year job, is that really a part of me? Was it, that big pension that I have or 401k, is that really a big part of me? Or, it could be family related where, was it really worth it that I just, stayed and worked on this instead of working on a relationship? And those, do I live where I actually would like to live? And this is my biggest thing. I look at life and see, if I was on my deathbed, would I regret how I came to that? Because we all like to feel like we're invincible and we're not. And yet when we walk through fires in life, we somehow pass through them, even if they're god awful to go through. And so, you should be burned a million times and you get to the other side. And that is what gives you that confidence, is you looking at fear and being able to be excited, because fear is the same feeling. It's just your mind. It's a decision again, even into that, for you to be able to go, is this feeling of butterflies in my stomach something that's going to really annihilate me? Or is it me actually having the bravery to step forward in something that's unknown? Like to, and I'm sorry, I'll pull back into this, but I'd just like you to think of one thing with this. If you stay the same, your best case scenario is your world doesn't get any bigger. Your worst case scenario is your world is going to get smaller. If you try something new, your best case scenario is your world gets bigger and better. Your worst case scenario is your world becomes smaller. So your worst case scenario stays the same no matter what.
Mhm.
And safety is just arbitrary out of that. And a lot of times we don't have, because we are independent people and not connected into the fabric as well as even what we were a few generations ago out of things. But, you know, just biologically, even if you just exclude all of that, because we're so independent as people, we have very few data points to go off of. We like these podcasts so that we can hear what someone else's story is. And then maybe that story can be able to influence or be able to benefit someone. But we need to have more discussions. And anymore, we are caught in a box of our home, our car, or at work. And we don't have the wisdom and the stories that give us other data points for us to be informed of what that one off data point that made us feel unsafe in life, if that's really valid or not. And so often that's where the invisible wall comes up. And I call it trauma coded leadership. It's actually, I'm writing a whole book on this, but that's exactly where the wall comes up. And it's a false wall. You can reach beyond that wall and touch something totally different. And so often we're trapped by our own data points that are so limited, but yet have such a profound effect on how we play out our life.
Yeah. You do feel like you have an ability to see those data points for other people.
Absolutely. Because I've seen enough kind of going through and helping and earning that trust and being able to be deeper in relationship. And then I've had my struggles. I've had huge struggles in life as well. It hasn't always been roses, but what should have burned me, I also come out on the other side. And it's helpful to be able to actually have those lived experiences to also show others the fact that they can come out on the other side as well. And that also earns trust. And it all comes down to relationship, like I said at the end. But there's real magic And this is truly a gap where people do not spend the time and the attention that they should because the weakness in their decisions and their judgments is fueling the whole capability of everything else that they feel like they have right.
Very interesting. I'm reading this book by Joseph Nugent, and there's some kind of synchronicity to it that was already playing out this week. So something you said touched into that. I'm like, this book, it's funny how things come up for us like that. I started to describe it as like the synchronicities aren't always going to be the journey. So for me, maybe it's not specifically this book, but that like what's so the book is like the path, and then maybe its contents are the rock and the tree I'm looking off to the side of the path, and then I see a stream and having a conversation with you where it makes the path I'm on my like focus. So it's like I'm looking at synchronicities a little bit different than just seeing the dots connecting, but kind of, you know, um, like instead of focusing on, wow, look at this dot just connected to the other one, it's like, whoa, what's going around? What's happening around this dot? Um, that might be for me that I can't predict. And that's been really exciting. And I know that's like very visual and strange thing, but it's something
Strangely,
I've
I have
started.
a Yeah, strangely, I have a visual that kind of emulates that. So
Oh,
I actually have people visualize their canyon that they're in. And you know all the
mm,
rocks, you know the walls, you know the stream that flows through, you know every single detail around this. But that is our safety. That's our haven. That is life. And we sit inside this canyon, but those walls are real obstructions. And so that's the key is knowing, is this wall real? Is it real? Does that wall really exist? Is that wall a valid wall for me to navigate my whole life around? Because it's a beautiful paradise. We don't have to question it, and it's gorgeous. And we know every detail, and we know how far we can step in every direction. But those are where we plateau. Where those boundaries are, that is exactly where we're prescribing our destiny, is based off of what we perceive as being those rigid walls in that canyon. So if you mind map, even if you kind of go through and you start thinking about, what is my identity? What do I spend my time, my energy, and my attention? What consumes me? That's a starting point for you to be able to take actual inventory and look at things and go, is that accurate? Does this, do I even have goals? Can I even think about where I'd be in 5 years? Do I even have a direction, or am I just working a good job? And, so many people even, and it's, from a family environment and such too, it's like people accept mediocrity into so many aspects of their life and just go, that's good enough. And that's sad to me. It was interesting. Even we posted in the community as well. We had the Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy interview that was there, and it's almost like Tony Robbins was talking to Alex Hormozy and telling him like, dude, like you really shouldn't position yourself just to suffer in life. And I thought, gosh, that resonates with me. I thought it actually is hitting on something I'm talking about as well. It's like, when is it prescribed that you must suffer? Like, we might go through painful times, but at the end of the day, yeah, we're human. We're going to have that, but I'm not aiming for suffering. I'm not aiming for the least amount of suffering out of something. I'm going to aim for something that brings happiness. And so often I just see people who aren't truly happy, but yet they're not really even looking outside of it. They just are living with those fragments as being them. And it's sad that that time's not spent looking elsewhere so that they can actually live and get to the point where there is no regrets at the end of it all. That no matter where that path took you, it still took you someplace that was the adventure that was worth living for the one life that you have.
amazing. I can see that again visually, and almost like little shards. And I'm like, "Oh, I really wanna get those." Like,
Yeah.
when we, take inventory, it doesn't feel good, you know? We sometimes start to do something. So to think of it like, when you said we pick up these pieces that aren't I almost could feel that, you know, and it's like, "Ooh, I don't want those." But I feel like the first step is acknowledging you have a problem. And, you know, to me, you didn't say it directly like that, but I feel like picking up pieces of glass that are and attaching them to ourselves. Is it kind of how I heard you say it is it's definitely not what I want to be doing, you know? And I like is that a good first place? I don't know. I don't mean to
It
be simplifying
is.
it of like acknowledge that you have these pieces and
But it's not
you know,
something to be shameful of. It's not something to
mm,
attach shame to. We all are in the same boat, and it's not your fault. It's the complexity of the environment that we're in. We're not in a good environment to people. Like,
mm,
if that makes any sense. We're not in a good environment to people. We're in a day and an age, and this is another thing. There's resilience and adaptability, right? And the agility that you have. Those three characteristics are really going to get tested more and more and more as we move forward with the compression of technology and artificial intelligence and everything else coming and changing the way that, think about how many people have picked up the shard of glass. Let's imagine that attention has just made it to where we have fragments all over the place, right? So how many people have picked up the shard of glass that's attached their identity to their work? I mean, you're in trouble with that. If you don't have identity that's clear, like work can be a great part of it, but how many people really see themselves as my worth is tied to this position, to this job, to this fixation that I have in this movement that I do? And those things, yeah, my gosh, if you haven't gone any deeper and AI changes something, layoffs happen, like the things that we put so much peace in thinking is a constant and thinking that that's safe is constantly in flux. And so the safest that we can be is instead of us being a tree that's lopsided, that's growing out of the side of a riverbed, if you can pendulum yourself back down to where you honestly know without a shadow of doubt and you're in control of that adventure of your life, and the pieces that you've picked up, those can be pieces of fruit that's on a tree branch or something of that nature, but that's not the trunk. The trunk is you, and you've taken the time to really figure that out. Then the tree can go through seasons. That gives you the Teflon. That gives you the ability to be able to be agile. That gives you the resilience to be able to walk through. This is what people are missing, and that all comes through your decisions. And that's the craziest thing. That's why I go, this is fundamentally the gap that sits in between success and failure and life being abundant and life being mediocre or life being terrible for some people. But let's just say mediocrity, I think, is far more prevalent unnecessarily in people's lives as being the accepted good. And why do we accept that? Why don't we go for great?
is the answer because we have these pieces we picked up that aren't us, that are kind of holding us
Yeah,
back.
that is. Those are all the pieces that we failed to question because again, the world doesn't give us time to question it. And we've assembled these ratty-tat pieces around to be what forms our day, what forms our cycle of sleep to awakeness to sleep to awakeness. And then 15 years pass, and you might have something that jolts you, and you go, what was all that for? And I see that cycle again and again and again. And I think those are what makes people on their deathbed go and have those realizations where they go, gosh, I should have just taken the chance if I would have known this. And that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. And that's why I say it's a good spot also to kind of reverse engineer and go, if I died today, if this was my last day here, what things would I actually have gone, gosh, that really sucks. I thought I had more time to do X. I lost my dad when I was 20, and he died within 6 months of being diagnosed with cancer. He was healthy, going to work every single day, and had blockages in his colon, and he starved to death. And so witnessing that from someone that's active and in their 40s and was saving for a better future for himself where he was going to have the beach house and everything else and lived very, very minimally. It wasn't something that made me go into a depression out of it, but it gave me the drive to ensure that I didn't have regrets. And I see out of that experience someone who went, "Gosh, I thought that there was going to be more to this." And that was striking, and something that also gave me the courage in a lot of ways, like you used the word courage and being courageous to go ahead and be adventurous and just try because you everyone has one shot. And you know what? Even if you messed all this up, it's not a license to do anything, but even if you messed all this up, you had a good go at it. No one's gonna know you a generation down the road anyway. We can't even name people, that ruled kingdoms, let alone, like, the grave is not gonna get visited more than that one generation beyond, and then you fade into history. So, how can you make a difference? You're not gonna make a difference by going, "I died with $1,000,000 in my bank account." You're gonna make a difference by the impact that you actually relationally had to another human being. That's where the impact is going to be. That's the real currency, is you being able to go to someone else and make an impact that's a legacy that they remember you for. You've transformed someone in a positive way. Those are currencies that actually do live beyond death.
When you say connection, I keep coming back to this like soil, and then when you gave the tree analogy, it was just very grounding for me where I have this desire to hear you while I'm looking, like literally looking at a tree, and feeling myself on the ground. And I am. We are humans on the planet right now. I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
I appreciate using the tree and the fruits as an analogy because it's very grounding to look at it like that, and it makes embracing the next steps for myself and I hope other people. It makes it feel more tangible and more grounded and possible. So thank you
That's
for sharing that.
amazing. You're so welcome. And that is really the analogy if you think of it. The roots go deep when you have great soil, when the tree can stand perpendicular and it can be upright. Like you have strength, you have growth, you have the ability to hold weight. It's not the fact that we don't go through pain. Those are welcome seasons too. And safety is arbitrary. Safety is something that is confinement. Now, there's irrational things that are unsafe, and those things should be, we're not, like I said, condoning everything out of anything. But in the same token, there's so many things that we have improper data sets within ourself to be able to be ill informed to make a good and accurate judgment or decision on. And those are where the growth gets stunted. The reality is not where it should be for a good, strong root system. And all of those things make the pain either feel worse because you don't have the stability and the strength, or it makes it to where you never grow and you live a life of mediocrity instead of greatness and being able to give and produce as much fruit as what you're capable of.
Every time I talk to you, I have this feeling that comes up and it's like, why I want to say this, but I keep feeling it. So and you probably know what it is. I don't know if it stood out. I don't even know what the importance of me sharing it right now, but it is I'm ready.
Yes, girl. Yes.
When you every time I'm like, yes, I'm ready. Yes, which is fun.
I
I
want to
can
get
feel
as
that.
many people to say I'm ready as possible. And I want to help them just cross over that river. I want them to get to the other side. That's my purpose, that's my life goal. That's what I want to do. I've
Yeah.
taken everything experientially and I want to turn it into knowledge that allows me to transform lives.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
I feel like this is a I want to kind of just bask in it. Your energy, your insight and how you look at things and yeah, just appreciate what you've given today and in showing up for me and sharing it for you
Bless.
and thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's been absolutely amazing to do this. So thank you so much, Karen.